What's your favorite T-shirt?
This Coca-Cola T-shirt.
I thought so. It's a beautiful red Coca-Cola T-shirt.
Isn't this what you said reminded you of Coca-Cola or no?
Yeah, it's because it's blue should be Ford.
Got it.
The Ford logo, Ford is blue.
Okay.
If you go look at a dealership, it's not going to be a bright red dealership that says Ford.
Maybe in post I can change it to blue.
Well, hopefully.
I'm not going to do that.
So
You have a blue shirt.
I do have a blue shirt.
It reminds me of a Ford shirt.
Look at this.
Nice.
The
I've never seen my face on a shirt before.
neither have I.
I've never seen your face on a shirt either.
So my kids for Christmas, they thought it would be fun to have this shirt made. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but things didn't exactly get shipped on time this year.
Yeah.
Did you experience any of that?
Oh, you're getting me in trouble right now.
Oh.
You are getting me in so much trouble right now. Oh,
Well,
okay. Keep telling the story.
This shirt,
Okay.
it just recently
showed up.
Just recently showed up. But Stevie designed this. The kids all as a group,
Yep.
they decided they wanted to get me something for Christmas.
Yeah.
And they thought it would be cool if we had our own shirt. Now,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say they only bought me one, but yeah. But they ordered this, and there it is.
They're aware there's two people on this show because there's two faces on the shirt.
Yes,
We don't have a staff,
that is true.
but they could only get the one,
I
huh?
did get one for Jordan.
Lucky Jordan.
Lucky Jordan.
It is Jordan's birthday.
It is.
That's a great, great Christmas gift. And my parents had the exact same idea.
Really?
Yes, they ordered me some great Good Ray shirts, different designed, and also didn't come in time.
Okay.
As opposed to shipping it now, though, they just got a refund because they said, "Well, we just designed something real quick, but maybe Dave, you could design it because we've already got it." For you for a present, why don't you just ship the logo into the website and, they can fulfill the order at a later date. And I said, that would be great. I can't wait. I'm excited for it. I want it.
Yeah.
But this has been a very, very hectic time at work. And also we do an hour-long podcast every single day. And it's like, I just haven't had time. And then so I keep pushing it back. And they've reminded me several times, they're like, well, don't you want the shirts? I'm like, I do so badly want the shirts. And now you have your shirt that you got and you're talking about it on the show. And I still haven't ordered mine, but I'm going to.
We can, we'll get that figured out.
Oh, I can't wait for.
Just soon we'll have a show with your shirt on.
Mark my words. We're going to do it. We're going to do it this week.
Definitely.
Because now I really have to, because if they see your shirt,
Yeah.
they'll be like, we tried to do that.
So today was pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The scooters really, I mean, you've got me totally convinced at this point. These scooters are remarkable. Like, as long as you're not going very far, and by very far, I mean like a half hour away or so.
Right.
They can get you pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, we went all over the place today. We went to the Corona Del Mar, where they have the tide pools, where you can see all the little creepy crawlers in the rocks and the seaweed that, is alive.
Yeah.
Like, it's not seaweed. It's those, I don't know what they're called, but they got like the tentacles that eat fish, and they're like Venus flytraps in the water.
Yeah. I couldn't believe when I put you're probably not supposed to touch them.
It's illegal, so we didn't do that.
We didn't do that. But if I did,
we watched YouTube videos of other people who did something.
And they told me that when you touch it, it's actually pretty sticky. Like it could almost suck my finger into it.
Yeah.
And then I would be trapped there for like the rest of my life. Now, keep in mind, it's only about the size of my fist, but
yeah.
But I mean, it would have had me.
Even some little fishes escape sometimes.
Oh,
yeah. My brother, they have poison, I suppose.
Really?
Where the fish swim into it, and then
like what we were touching was poisonous.
what those people on YouTube were touching was poison.
I mean, yes.
And
those people.
they suck in like the fish. They eat things, and so I've heard that their little fingers will like paralyze the little fishes that go in there.
Okay. As if the stickiness wasn't enough.
Right. And my brother Josh licked one of them.
Really?
Yeah, he licked it, and he said it was a very, very surprising sensation because it was instantly numbed his entire mouth.
Now, honestly, if you told me that they have some sort of numbing agent, I would have told the people on the internet, the YouTubers that touch those things, I would have told them they shouldn't do that. Because
I would say they should for sure.
Well,
I want to see them.
but if I'm picturing myself in their position, I would have probably chose not to do it because I'm thinking, well, I don't want to experience that.
Yeah.
But I certainly wouldn't go the extra step and then try to like lick one. Like it's very rare where I see something out in nature and I think, I want my tongue on that.
Yeah. Well, Josh is nuts. I don't know. I've never licked one. It's never occurred to me. I mean, it's kind of
I think it would say something more about you if you were thinking of licking one.
I mean, Josh obviously thought of it. I mean, somebody gave him the idea.
What else is he licking?
I have no idea, but I mean, for some reason,
Hey, a penny.
he got in his head and he did it, and he was like, "Oh, you don't want to do that."
Thank you for doing it.
Yeah. So I took.
Thank you for informing the rest of the world.
Yeah, I took his advice. I have. I think about licking those things less now, even than before.
Josh is like a candidate for the Darwin Awards one of these days.
Oh yeah, he's been a candidate his whole life.
Of all the things that he could lick, you know, he's the world's his oyster. I'm sure he's licked one of those as well.
I have no idea what got in his head, but he said it was terrible.
Huh? Yeah.
That's what you should never do with those.
Don't touch
lick them.
Yeah, and you're not legally allowed to touch them, but maybe he thought it was a loophole.
I'll just touch it with my tongue.
Yeah, it's gentler. I wonder.
Yeah, but we got to go on the ferry ride. We went down and saw. We made it all the way to the wedge this time, so we saw like the huge waves.
I didn't crash that time.
Right. So the wedge. What did you think of that? That's pretty impressive.
That was probably the biggest waves I've seen in my entire life. And what's crazy about it is there's probably 20 kids out there.
Yeah.
And the waves are coming in from this way, but then the jetty is causing a second wave to come this way. It's like echoing off the jetty. And then it comes to like this one point where, as far as I could tell, 100% of the kids crashed at that point.
Right. And it's massive.
And it looked like they were probably 20 feet off the ground at that point on a great wave. Mm-hmm. And then it breaks and it's at the shore. Like you see in the movies, or, you know, they're surfing on Hawaii. They're out in the waves and they're surfing in. They come, you know, maybe close to the shore.
It's a big, long, rolling wave that they're riding for a long time.
This is like 3 seconds and then fall 20 feet to sand.
Yeah.
So it was kind of crazy. It makes me
cool.
And it's my understanding people periodically die there.
Oh yeah. Every year people die at the wedge.
Yeah. It looks like it's pretty dangerous.
It's a serious thing. You don't go out there unless you know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. Or if you're like a 12-year-old.
Yeah, but it's fun to go out in there and watch them.
And we saw that just as we were leaving, there was a surfboard that like someone was riding it and then they crashed.
Yeah.
And the surfboard came out and shot like 30 feet.
Yeah. And there was that one kid who snapped his board.
Yeah.
The whole foam board broke.
You got a picture of that too, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's like, what do you have to do to snap a surfboard that's in the water? Like, what kind of opposing forces causes that buoyant, hard foam thing to snap in half? Like, because it's obviously got to get caught somewhere. Something like I just don't understand even how that's possible.
Yeah. But I imagine if it like got hit on the ground or something, maybe it would.
I have no idea.
But But even then, I mean, they're so buoyant, you wouldn't think that would happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a good time, and we went. What is the street that we took up to those waiting pools? The pools.
I don't know what that street's called. I forgot.
Where were we when we were going up?
It's
there?
Corona Del Mar, between
okay.
Newport Beach and Corona Del Mar.
Yeah, and they're beautiful houses on the like they're on the cliff. They all look like it's like a whole neighborhood of people like Tony Stark, right?
Yeah,
like every house is Tony Stark's house.
Everyone's a billionaire. Like, do you all own Facebook? Like, how? Who are you people, and why are there thousands of houses that are, cross between some Tony Stark thing and a castle?
Yeah, that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Then there was that one house. This house, I'm not joking. It looked like it was a museum. It was 3 stories.
Yeah,
it was taking up a lot of space, but the architecture of it was beautiful. They were just building it.
Oh, yeah. Are you talking about the thing that looked like a skate ramp?
Yeah, it looked like waves on the outside of the building.
Yeah. That's probably what it was. They probably patterned it after, like, the water.
Yeah.
It's probably inspired by the beach.
It reminded me of an aquarium. Like, if you go to an aquarium, that looked like the design that they would go with.
Yeah.
But, yeah, a beautiful architecture. So, and all of the palm trees. I mean, literally, it's so unique to see these things here.
And it's warm. It was warm.
Yeah.
Like, we're out there in a t-shirt in February.
Yeah, February. It was great. Yeah. So, got to wear my good
Your awesome
shirt.
Good Race shirt. I got to wear my Ford Motor Company shirt because I don't have custom shirts. Now I'm getting. I am gonna get a call if I don't stop. It's my fault.
You're gonna get a call either way.
I know. Why did you bring that shirt? That's cool. Way to go, Sarah and Stevie.
And all the girls.
Yep.
Ellie, Rosie, Daisy, and Magnolia.
Although I don't didn't do much.
She was critical.
She was against it. She just wanted to get you some socks and a tie.
Yeah. At 2-year-old, she's she doesn't think much of t-shirts, but she likes sweets. You can find her. She's going to climb onto the table.
Yeah.
If there is anything sweet on the table, she'll walk into the room with like a lollipop in her mouth, and we're all looking at her like, where did you get that?
She sniffed it out like an ant. She found it.
So, yeah, she's funny. Actually, she's not even 2. She's like 1.5. How'd she pull that off?
You let her off her leash?
Yeah, we once a day.
Okay. So we have 2 more chapters left of Romans. Well, actually, we have 3. 14, 15, and 16. But 16 is going to be a quick one. So we really only have 2 more chapters to wrap up. We're starting with Romans 14 today.
Yeah, 14, 1 through 4. And the heading was Danger of Criticism. So, accept other believers who are weak in faith, and don't argue with them about what they think is right or wrong. For instance, one person believes it's all right to eat anything, but another believer is sensitive, has a sensitive conscience, will only eat vegetables. Those who feel free to eat anything must not look down on those who don't. And those who don't eat certain foods must not condemn those who do, for God has accepted them. Who are you to condemn someone else's servants? Their own master will judge whether they stand or fall, and with the Lord's help, they will stand and receive his approval.
Perfect.
So the first time I read this through, I really focused on the beginning, and I think we should, but I really learned a lot from the end here. But so let's work our way through it. But
right.
There's some interesting nuggets at the end of this.
Yep.
I feel like this is something I struggle with. All right. Jealousy maybe not my shtick.
Yep.
But
Well, don't worry. I struggle with this too.
you always have to one up me.
Everything. I struggle with it all. The boatload.
So accept others weaken their faith and don't argue with them about what they think is right or wrong. And it gives the example of eating, and you shouldn't condemn each other, because it's ultimately God who's accepting them. But I find it's very difficult. I look out in the world and I see even new Christians, it's like they come up with something and it's like, ooh, that's not it. But I feel like I can get overly critical and maybe be a turnoff. Like I don't want to be making them feel like I'm overly critical and also I don't want them to think God is represented by how I'm improperly acting.
Yeah, your attitude and God's attitude aren't necessarily aligned.
Yeah.
I see.
And it seems like what it's saying is God's being gentle and understanding with these new believers who are weak in faith, but people like me, we might not be.
Mm-hmm.
So, have you ever experienced this?
Oh, definitely. Because everybody feels like they've got kind of the right idea and the right balance. It's like whenever you read the Bible, you don't think you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
You always are reading it from the better person. So like when Paul talks about, well, some people have weak consciences and some people have strong consciences. I'm like, well, I have a strong conscience. It's not necessarily true because there's certain things that I will think, no, that's not right. Maybe it was the way I was raised. Maybe it was whatever, but I think, oh, it's not the best thing. And there's other people who live a completely different life. They use different language. They have a different lifestyle. They participate in different activities that I don't necessarily do, or they just do it differently. They just come at it from a different viewpoint. I can tell you one example of this that just jumps out at me in my head is one of my roommates. I have a roommate who's a Christian guy. We've been in Bible study together for months and months. He was going to church since I've known him. I've known him for about 3 years. He's lived with me for 1. And when he moved in, he swears all the time. And so when he's laughing and joking around with my other roommate and me, he's peppering his speech with all kinds of like F-bombs and, he just swears a lot.
Yeah.
And my instinct after living with him for a few weeks was, you're probably not as good of a Christian as I was led to believe at first. Because, listen to yourself. This is nothing like I talk. And I talk with just the right amount of salty language on the occasion when it's going to be funny, but I don't typically go there too much. And then I went to his house. He was gracious enough to invite me to Thanksgiving, and I went to his house for Thanksgiving, and I was at the dinner table while he was talking to his dad, and both of them are going back and forth. They got a good relationship. They're going back and forth with each other, and they talk very much the same.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, part of the reason why I don't say a lot of those things is because my dad never said those kinds of things, probably.
Yeah.
That was the culture of our house. We never heard swearing growing up. And in fact, when movies had too much swearing in it, it was frowned on. It was like a movie we don't want to watch with too much swearing. That was just the way I was raised. And then you go over to somebody else's house and you hear this kid who's, 24 years old, talking to his dad, and they're talking to each other in the same language that obviously they grew up in, and that's what they do.
Yep.
And it completely flipped my opinion on it, because I was like, well, if my dad talked like this to me, I would definitely talk back to him the same way.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the scenario that I wouldn't. And so I was like, oh, you know what? That's me I'm being judgmental at a time, and it's not important, because it's what he's saying he's never one time said something that offended me. It was just using words that I've never incorporated in my vocabulary.
Yeah.
So that's what I think of when it's like, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to go and like correct him and tell him how he needs to speak.
Yeah.
As if what he's doing is wrong. And then have an argument with him saying, look, this is how me and my dad talk. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, leave me alone. I could imagine that being a fight if I had ever tried to have it.
Yeah.
And I think I would have been the one wrong. Because look, he is a believer. He loves the Lord. And the promise is that with the Lord's help, he will stand and receive God's approval.
Yes. Yep.
So
it's not really our place to be telling them what's right and wrong, especially when they're young believers.
yeah. And also, like, my brain says, okay, I'm at this starting point now. What is it going to take for me to start just cursing like crazy when I talk?
Yeah.
It's going to be a change of,
It's going to have to
it's going to be a change on my end to try and incorporate that. And so then I hear him and I go, oh, you've made that change that I haven't done.
and it would
Shame
take
on you.
Yeah. Yeah. So what comes to mind as an example of this in my mind is there was a great message that I heard years ago, and it was called Bringing Home the Prodigals. Maybe we'll put a link in the description.
Okay.
But in that, there was he was describing a pastor who had this church, and it was a really nice church in the suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was a prostitute came to the church,
Mm-hmm.
and she came in, she sat with them, and, you know, everyone's like shocked at what she's wearing, and it's a big deal. Everyone's really concerned about this.
Yeah.
And she really got a lot out of it. She got a lot out of the message. And so the next week, she invited all her prostitute friends. And so now we have a half dozen prostitutes coming in. They look, you know, a little bit racy, and people are concerned. Older women are telling their husbands to close their eyes. And so you have this situation. So when one of the older ladies from the church went to the pastor and said, "Pastor, we got to fix this. This needs to be fixed. They're destroying our church. We used to be this really respectable church, and we got to fix this." And the pastor, in his wisdom, he said, I know what you're saying. You know, it's really, really horrible. So, will you help me? And she's, yeah. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And he says, I need someone to mentor these women and show them and give them guidance and bring them up in the Lord. And in that moment,
They became Christians?
well, the one, you get the impression that she became was coming in and then inviting, and that maybe she was a young believer, but she was inviting her friends. But so the woman, in a moment, she realized her perception, her paradigm shifted 100%.
She was looking at the needs of the culture instead of the needs of the individuals.
Yes. She wanted these people out of their church so they could have a nice, respectable church.
Yeah.
But now she sees that, no, that's not the right way.
Yep.
We need to take care of these women and bring them up into the church and give them guidance and help them become stronger and stronger believers, and not to criticize them for what they're wearing and stuff, but and to kick them out of the church. So yeah, I look at that scenario, and trust me, if you listen to the message, he says it way better than I could, but it was just a really powerful message that, especially with new believers, someone who's weak in faith, we're trying to build them up. We're not trying to tear them down. We're not trying to criticize what they're doing. And you might have a more nuanced understanding of how you should believe, but that could have taken your entire lifetime to get to that point.
Yeah.
Where someone else they've been in a culture within their family or where they work, or, the people that live around them, they have this culture, and it might not be the most godly culture, but we're called to come to Christ as we are. We're not called to get it right and then come to him.
Yeah.
We're supposed to come as we are. And so as more mature Christians, it's not good to be critical of new believers who are at a disadvantage.
Yeah. I will point out, it doesn't say new. It says, accept other believers who are weak in faith. Meaning,
yeah, I suppose you're right.
Meaning, in a sense, Paul is giving a wink and a nod to the reader. Like, hey, whoever the reader is, like, you're going to think of yourself as strong. And so it's like, here, I'm talking to you one-on-one. Like, hey, don't be so critical of those who are weak in their faith. Like, we know about what's right or wrong, because they're not serving you. What right is it for you to serve someone else's or criticize someone else's servants?
Yes.
They're living for God. They're believers. And so things like, some people think it's okay to eat anything. Other people only eat vegetables. And this is convicting for me a little bit, because I've never really been super serious about it, but I criticize vegetarians and vegans all the time. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Meat is delicious. And I have all kinds of jokes about that.
Yeah.
And I have seen it in my family where we have close friends or people who are sensitive to like animals, and they are vegan because they don't want to kill any animals, or they're vegetarians. And they're still Christians. They're still good people. This is their own conviction. They're living their life. And I have, made fun of it. I've seen Facebook back and forths where it wasn't me making fun of it, but I've seen other people, and I've seen it like be put on them like that's stupid.
Yeah.
We eat meat. What a ridiculous thing to become a vegetarian, whatever. And it's like, it's not really your place. That's what they feel. Let them do it. Maybe they're weaker than you. That's what Paul says. Okay, they're weaker than you, but that's okay. Leave them alone. They don't serve you.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, and I appreciate that you mentioned that. It doesn't say someone that's a new believer. It's any believers that, really it's talking about anyone that might have a different conscience about various things.
We're all going through this life alone. In a sense, we have each other to encourage one another, sharpen each other. I think that it's important to stay in a culture of believers so that you can kind of see when you're slipping. If you're an island, it's easy to start drifting. However, at the end of the day, when you die, you're going to go all alone. And when you stand before the Lord, it's just going to be you and him in the room.
Yeah.
There's nobody else. All the opinions of all the people yelling things you should have done, they're all waiting their turn. It's just you and God at the end.
Yeah.
And the idea is if they're believers, with the Lord's help, they will receive his approval. Because that's what the good work that he's started, he's going to continue for each and every one of us. And so, and it's hard to do everything. We talked yesterday about clothing yourself in the presence of Jesus Christ. It is hard to remain in that place 24/7. We're constantly being pulled away. We constantly have temptations. We constantly have circumstances that seem bigger than us. We constantly have discomfort, pain, suffering, things that will distract us and focus on here and now. And it's like, well, so when you see a believer who's doing something like their own diet, or they've got some vices or some sort of a lifestyle that you don't understand and you wouldn't do yourself, to go in and be very critical of them seems like it's not really your place. And it seems like you might be making their way harder instead of being an encouraging force for the positive. You might be kind of holding them back and causing more strife than they need. That's just my own thought, but he didn't say all that, but
yeah,
just trying to figure out why he would do it, why he would say that. But
yeah, I really like the part where he says, let their own master judge whether they will stand or fall.
Yeah. The title's interesting too. The danger of criticism.
Yes. Yeah. Because it gives you the impression that you're the one that's going to be judged also.
Yeah.
And according to this, you're not supposed to be condemning someone else's servants. So
if you call it danger, it could have negative, it's almost like you're causing a problem.
Well, yeah. Yeah. And potentially for yourself and potentially for someone else. But it's not, basically it's saying, hey, it's God's servant,
mind your own.
I think there is probably a distinction between clear sin and sort of like these more gray areas. Like what it's describing here is food.
If you have a fellow believer who's weak in the faith and is also a bank robber,
then you should maybe let them know that thou shalt not steal.
Right. That was a cultural thing in my family. My dad never robbed a bank.
Never once.
Not once.
But
so it was easy for me.
It
was easy for me to not do it.
So someday you might have a bank robber roommate, and
in that case,
their dad may be, a notorious thief, and but I think even in those circumstances,
in that case,
even if they're weak in faith,
maybe they shouldn't.
Maybe you should mention it to them.
I will.
So
okay, so there's a line here.
I think there is.
Yeah, got it.
I guess.